Yes, yes, yes. We are back.
Yes,
I
we're
think.
back. Yeah, we are back.
All right.
We are absolutely back. Um, that was to Sheila, my new friend, who's a Ugandan rapper. I saw that she was performing at a Pride event, and so I wrote a congratulations, and so it was her official page. But so we managed to connect as people, and so she wants to come out here, and because I was a little bit like, man, I mean, I'm a pretty good, I'm a good promoter, but I don't think like don't think I can really like book a hip hop show. But I told her to
You
try.
said you don't think you can hook up a hip hop show? Why not?
So.
You've done other shows. You can do a hip hop show. Yeah, you can. I think you
work
can.
on it. Yeah.
I think we can almost get one with Duck Soup.
Well, see, that's.
And I think that's the same thing. You'd be able to get it. You have people who could. It can be done.
Yeah. Well, I wrote Age about it, and he said you should do it.
A hip hop show?
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, well, but I can't just do. I don't think I can like hook this up on my own. I need more connection. I need more other people to help with that.
You try to get. I don't know. It's like I don't know if you try to get the foreign ones. Like I don't know if the foreign ones. Wasn't there a guy from Africa?
Yeah.
You'd have to fly him here.
Well, he's not. I'm just talking about Tashila right now.
Oh, just her by herself? Yeah,
Yeah.
But you can still get a show. Osai.
You think?
Age. Thug Nasty.
Well, Age didn't say he would help. He was just like,
he
you
would.
should do it.
I'd be like, man, you should help out, dude.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Just gotta know how to talk to him. Talk to people. Just say, dude, you don't want to bring in all the rappers in here. Let's do it. I'm pretty sure we were gonna do it. We were planning on doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah,
We'll see.
Okay, so Tashila, we're trying. We're gonna try. Yeah, Emmanuel Jaw would fly him with. He does. He does like peace workshops and stuff, and so he told me that he would come out and do one if I can get like more at the time I was just trying to do all this by myself when I connected with him. He said that he would come out and do one if I got more people to help me with it, basically, and then he does those for free. He does it's like his nonprofit.
Well, if you ever decide to want to do it,
I'd love to.
You want to get some people, dude, just we can all discuss it. We were trying to do something like that anyway.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if you were here when we were talking about it on Duck Soup once, where we wanted to try to get a show. Well, we wanted to do the Empress, but I told him, I said, I wouldn't mind doing it, but we got to make sure whoever comes, that they're going to want to do it,
Yeah, well, we'd
have to plan something like that about maybe a year in advance or something about, that time, so we know people are going to be able to show.
If I'm going to do a hip hop show, I'd want to do it in Oakland.
Why?
Or Richmond. I don't think enough people
why
will come.
In Richmond?
I don't think enough people will come in Vallejo.
Well, yeah. I don't know, man. I would want to try it in Vallejo first.
Yeah.
And see what it would be like. See how it would go.
And look at me, like I'm the queen of doing stuff in Vallejo. I'm like
that's
doing.
What I'm saying. Try it in a comfortable place first.
Yeah.
See how you feel about it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Oakland. For the Bay Area, Oakland and San Francisco are like a bigger thing.
But this is a different realm because like the kind of stuff I do, it just matters. I don't know. I mean, it's different. It's just different. It's different. It's quieter, and so I don't know. What's an idea?
It's an idea, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I just starting straight out with Oakland. I don't know. It might work. I don't know.
Just to bring in more people. There's not enough of an audience in Vallejo. There's not enough people.
Right.
I mean, I know people that would come. I mean, and I have like connections with some of the youth organizations and stuff, but I just don't think there's enough people. And I mean, in a way, and and if you do it at a place, if you're trying to do it in Oakland, I mean, there's a lot more venues. So I'm not saying we're not going to start off at some big one of the big venues. We'll start off at a smaller venue. So that's what I would look at. But yeah, but I mean, I haven't even.
But I still think it can be done.
Yeah.
We give people time to, you get it started a year in advance and start getting people together, see who wants to do it.
Yeah.
Then once you get it connected.
Well, yeah, and then the reason I said Richmond was because I want to move one of my move the Bayard Reston Symposium to Oakland, and I have one show lined up there in August. Well, because I was speaking with somebody with
what part of Richmond? I'm just curious.
It was somebody's suggestion because I was speaking with a pastor in Oakland about doing some of the symposium programming there. And she said, "What about Richmond?" And I said, "Sure." There's a church there she knows of.
Oh, she wants you to do it in a church she knows. That's what. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
It's just Richmond. It's just a weird.
I know, but
you wouldn't do it in Vallejo. Why would you? I don't know.
Richmond
and Vallejo are kind of like.
I've done it in Vallejo. I've done this is the.
No, but I'm saying like the way that it is, because you're saying Oakland is a little bit more. I just think Richmond and Vallejo are kind of similar in the sense of, if you weren't going to do it in Vallejo, why would you do it in Richmond? I don't know. It's just.
I've done it in Vallejo. I've been doing it in Vallejo for 2 years.
No, but what I'm saying is.
I'm talking about the Bayard Reston Symposium.
Oh, you're talking about that.
Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why.
I thought we were talking about the hip hop thing. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
No, we're jumping around a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and so with the I mean, I'm talking about doing Bayard Reston Symposium programming, and and that's like Black history and all of that. So that's interesting, and so to me, I mean, it would be awesome to bring it anywhere, I mean, and I mean, I can show that film wherever I want to.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, he doesn't charge me for. He doesn't charge me for screening it, and so yeah, so I think it'd be awesome. And then so this Pastor Donna Allen has like different connections, and she just, she knew a place where they might be interested. I said sure. But we'd start. So that was pretty cool to have her enthusiasm on that. But so because we're going to show the film at the Oakland LGBT Center in August, and so I have that lined up. But what I was talking with Pastor Donna about is doing the show, the bigger show with the symposium, with the presenters and all of that, because I mean, the thing is, I've been doing the Bayard Reston Symposium for 2 years, and I want people to bring me some ideas. I kind of feel like, okay, I can show this film, and I have, that's when I'm hoping I want to get it bigger, and so I'm hoping that showing it at, and then I've connected with, I have an old friend who's been doing, she's somebody that I'd connect with about doing the hip hop shows too, just because she because she knows every place. Yeah. She's one of these people that knows everyone and everywhere. Kin folks.
Yeah. That's good.
But particularly the Bayard Reston Symposium and the films, because she does a lot of film screenings. So I'm hoping by showing You Don't Have to Ride Jim Crow in Oakland in August, that I'll meet new people that will hopefully want to be involved. She does affinity screenings there at the Oakland Center, which means like screenings for all people, just for people of color. So we're gonna do 2 screenings. So and so hopefully there'll be more people like new, because there's so many people from Oakland that that were kind of interested in the Biodiversity Symposium, but weren't gonna come out to Vallejo. So now hopefully I can connect with more of them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and get some more people involved, and make that even bigger. So I have that, and then I'm working on the screening the Ralph Bunche documentary on October 2nd, and so I've been fooling around with different permutations, and I'm going to hopefully be able. I'm looking at how to do a youth screening of it, and it's tricky because the film is 2 hours long. I mean, it's really involved and complicated, and I just don't know. I mean, I'm not around young people that much now. I mean, I don't know what their frame of reference is. I don't know what their background is. And so, I mean, I initially talked about doing a youth screening, but I was like, okay, I need to work more directly. I mean, I need to get some parents in on this, and I can't just do a youth screening on my own because youth aren't going to show up. But there's an organization called the Jack and Jill Club. Mm-hmm. Do you know of it? Mm-hmm. It's an organization for young African Americans that's like older. Like my friend, and I know about it because my friend QR, who's like 80, was in the Jack and Jill Club with Ralph Bunche's daughters. Mm. And so there's a Ralph and there's a Jack and Jill Club here in Vallejo. And so last year, that was, see, that's kind of one of my points about like how you need to educate yourself and how you need to learn about history, because I would never have known what the Jack and Jill Club was if I hadn't talked with QR. And so at last year's Juneteenth, I was like, wow, there's a Jack and Jill Club in Vallejo. So last weekend I went down to Juneteenth and was chatting with people, and there was a woman there who was talking with somebody from the Jack and Jill Club. So I was like, okay, well maybe if we can like do it as part of the organization, sort of make it an activity for the club, and then maybe like the youth group at the church, kind of do it for, I can't just like spring it on young people if they're sort of, if you make it as part of an activity that they already go to, and, when you have some time to prepare them from it. I just feel like if you sort of put it in like, okay, guys, this might be a little long, but it's important, and that, make it in like a positive thing. So I'm going to see about doing that. And I'm like, and I would just want to point out like, okay, look, you guys, I mean, what I would tell like any young person, like, I didn't know, this is all stuff, again, that I've learned about in like the past 5 and 10 years of my life. And so for a young person learning about Ralph Bunche, it's the sort of thing where it's like, okay, if you know about stuff like this, you're ahead of everybody else, and you make a good impression. I mean, I can't even remember, but like, I'd be talking to my goddaughter about this and like giving her the lowdown and stuff, and I'm just like, look, you just know more, you just learned more about this than a whole lot of people twice your age, and so wherever you go, you can talk about this issue and impress people. Right. That's important. So Ralph Bunche, we are. God, I know, I can just go on and on about that. But, okay, so our boy Joe Biden is in a little bit of trouble. He's been getting in trouble. Have you seen what's happening?
Yeah, they're trying to get him, dude.
Yeah, but what he did is really, I mean, I love my Joe, but I think what he did it's really wrong. And the fact that okay, so let's give the little rundown. And it sucks because, I think he's coming from a good place and he has a good point, but he's going about it completely wrong. So he's talking about his thing is how good he is at working across the aisle and working with other people. And so he brought up the names of some rabid segregationists that were in the Senate when he was young. And so he was talking about how it was really hard for him to, he's talking about how it's hard for him, who was like a young white guy at the time, to work with these people, but he managed to do it. So it's just like such a complete lack of awareness. Mm-hmm. That's the problem with it. Like, well, come on, Joe. I mean, what's the big deal? Okay, like, you look, I mean, you're not. That shouldn't be your example of how to get along with people. And that he said something really insulting. He's like, they never called me boy, they called me son. And it's just really an inappropriate, disrespectful thing to say. And so Cory Booker, the African American senator from New Jersey, said that it was offensive. And so then Joe Biden was asked about that, and Biden said, well, I don't have a racist bone in my body. Cory should apologize to me. Wow. It's so out of line. I just don't even know where to start. Like, okay, you're offended because an African American man was offended, and I mean, Cory Booker didn't say Joe Biden is a racist. He, when he said in the conversation, he's like, he said he likes Biden, but it's not an okay thing to say, and that he needs to understand why. So that just sucked. I mean, it was a really, actually, it's just, Joe, the problem with him, and, I'm not going to rule, like, okay, Joe, you need to keep up with the times, and you need to, if you want to be the president, you need to be able to relate to people and, like, understand why this was really offensive. And, Bill de Blasio, who I think is kind of an idiot, the mayor of New York City that's running for president. The problem is that everybody needs said that, like, blah blah blah. Well, according to these those two guys wouldn't even have wanted me to marry my wife because his wife is black, and yeah. So, but especially. I don't know. I just feel like he especially should have. Cory Booker's a mellow dude. That's kind of his whole thing. He's real peaceable, and Biden should have listened to anybody, but Cory Booker is not somebody that's going to be flying off the handle about stuff. So it just looks really bad, and so anyway, Joe fucked up. Basically, he's doing a bad job. It was wrong that he said it, and it's wrong that he is not willing to admit that he was wrong, and that he doesn't understand, try and listen and understand why what he did was wrong. So you're doing bad, Joe. I think maybe Burn Dog planted it. Because basically, like, I was reading about the debates, it totally sucks. They're, like, gonna have, like, Burn Dog and Biden, like, centered and stuff. It's like, oh, fuck that, man. Those two need to, like, knock each other off.
I still can't get over Burn Dog.
Bird Dog's added, Bird Dog hasn't said stuff. I mean, it's the sort of thing that Bird Dog would say too.
Yeah, like, everybody Anna loves her some Bird Dog.
Like when he was talking about, I mean, Bird Dog I think he's like, doesn't have like any much racial awareness either. I mean, it was a big problem in his campaign 4 years ago, and so now he's like going through the motions a little bit more, but he'll say something stupid like that too. He will. So, yeah, Uncle Joe, you are not doing good, okay? You just need to, like, step back and, okay, so I don't really like Pete Buttigieg either, because I think, I've talked about this before. I don't like millennials. I think it's really fucked up for somebody. It's, you have to be egotistical to run for president in the first place. You have to be, like, who the fuck do you think you are? You're like the mayor of a small town, and it's this idea. It's like, okay, if you're so great and wonderful, you should be like inspiring other people to get involved. Go around and get some of your little millennial buddies to get off their asses and get involved. So he has a real bad record on racial issues too. It's like as soon as he was elected as mayor, he fired the black police chief. And so this past weekend, there was an officer involved shooting in his town. So he flew home supposedly to deal with it, but he didn't go to the vigil for the man that was killed, and he didn't reach out to his family. So it's like, why the fuck did you, what are you, okay, like, yeah, so, okay, well, you're flying home to try and, like, clean up the officer's mess, apparently. So, I mean, I would like him to get knocked out, too. Like, dude, you need to represent the country, and that's just fucked up. And especially, like, okay, you don't have, I mean, being old isn't a valid excuse, but you're young too. Like, you should know better than that. And and it just shows this lack of awareness. Like, like, where have you been, dude? I mean, this is a huge major issue for people. So, man, knock each other out, guys. That's what you all should do. So, okay, that is what's the latest. And it just makes a big deal to me that people like Bird Dog and Buttigieg had never campaigned for other people. Like, Biden has a record of public service. Biden has gone out and campaigned for other people for all these years, and so that makes a difference to me. But Buttigieg is like, never has, and Bird Dog hasn't, and Beto hasn't, and I mean, one of the big things that has happened with women senators over the years is, as soon as they get elected, everybody wants them to come to campaign to other events to try and bring in women. So people like Kamala, I mean, Elizabeth Warren and Kristen Gillibrand have gone like all over the fucking country. Whenever people are running for office and want to show that they're progressive on women, they get women legislators to come out and campaign for them. They have totally put in their time. They both campaigned for Obama and for Hillary. So that just means a lot to me. People that have, like, okay, if you've done like anything for others, that makes a big difference to me. Okay, so there was a kind of strange story out of Egypt. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the former president of Egypt died in court, and his name was Mohammed Morsi. So, okay, there was the Arab Spring in 2011, and Hosni Mubarak, who'd been the dictator for 20 years, was overthrown. And so Morsi was elected president in 2012, and he was the first, like, peaceably elected civilian leader. But he was so he was kicked out in a military coup in 2013, and the military has basically been in charge since then. And the dispute people had with him was that he was a real religious conservative fundamentalist person, and so some people felt he jailed a lot of protesters, people that were against him. Egypt has 60,000 political prisoners. So Morsi had been in jail for 5 years and didn't receive any medical treatment, and so he was being tried for, I don't know, treason or whatever, and just keeled over and died in court. And so he was buried. He was just buried really quickly, and he wasn't. His family wasn't allowed to have a service or anything. So that's just kind of strange. I mean, Egypt was one of these countries where you really hoped things were going to get better for them, and it kind of didn't seem like it did. So that is what happened in Egypt. I've been trying to, I kind of saw this like a couple days ago, and it's one of the sort of weird stories that I like, but I didn't get a chance to really try and figure it out until earlier today. So, okay, now here is something that I didn't have get to last week, which was in Cameroon. Okay, now 41-year-old guy named Andre Esama. He describes himself as an activist who aims to replace all the colonial statues in the city with those of national heroes who fought for the country's independence. And he gained national attention in 2015 when he beheaded the statue of a French colonial hero. So he basically goes around smashing statues of colonialists. Wow. Yeah, I like this guy. Yeah. I thought you'd like that one. So I don't know. More people should do that, man. Take, topple the Confederate generals and all of that. That is what I think should happen. And okay, so meanwhile, okay, Mount Everest is just crazy. I mean, I think like 3 people died in 1 week. Have you seen pictures of people like climbing Mount Everest? I mean, it's crazy. It's like you see like, it's like this line to get up there. You're just like standing there. It's like, it's crazy. People have it in their mind, like, oh, I want to climb Everest. And then some of them, they completely rely on Sherpas, the Nepalese people that help them. And said, like, some of them can pretty much like get dragged up the mountain and dragged down practically. And so people are standing there and with low oxygen, and that's just crazy. I would never do that. Like,
that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, I think it's really stupid. And so,
what's that one mountain that people climb?
Everest.
Is that the only one? The one that it gets frozen, like you go up there, it starts to freeze?
Well, several of them.
But there was one that I used to see on TV, and people would die.
Everest.
That was Everest? Okay.
Yeah. Well, people
And
die.
I don't think at the time they had people helping them either. They would do it.
Well, the time, like, when you were... Well, are you talking about, like, when you were a kid?
See, that's what I'm saying. I can't remember how long ago, but it was probably right out of high school or around that time.
So if it was over... I mean... You know, like anything over the years, it becomes more and more commercialized, and more people learn that they could make money off of it. Because, you know, I mean, it used to be, it's like a lot of stuff. I mean, people that used to really work up to being able to climb it, and they'd be like, and even then, a lot of the time they'd die. And so the commercial, it started to get real commercial about 25 years ago. And you know, when there started to be like tour outfits and you know, they get real organized and, you know, run by professionals, and, you know, they just, you know, and then it's one of the problems is that, you know, people that can spend that much money are people that are really used to having things their own way. And so that's, like, say if there's a storm or something, like your guide is supposed to be the person for, with good judgment. And so there's been a lot, so there was this real famous case called, book and film by John Krakauer about a bunch of people that died on Mount Everest. And some of them were just like, oh, I want to get to the top, I want to get to the top. And the guides, everybody's judgment was kind of off because people are paying them. And so they know that, like, okay, well, if this person is, like, disappointed because they don't get to the top of the mountain, then that'll be bad for my business. And so people really go against their own judgment. And so what happens is like, say you're supposed to turn back. I mean, that's just one of the biggest things with anything, with hiking or, like, diving is like, scuba diving, you know, like, diving is like, say you're supposed to turn back, like,
at a certain point, yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, when you have, like, half a tank, you turn back when you have half a tank of air left.
Right.
That's just what you have to do. Sometimes even, I've heard, like, sometimes even if you just have, like, 2/3, because you have to have enough to get back. And, you know, so it doesn't matter where you are. And that happens a lot in diving, because if you know, like, yeah, you don't get to dive as long because you have to get back. And so with mountain climbing, you know, you have to get back before the sun goes down. It gets it gets even colder. So they had people that didn't want to do that, and, you know, they're just people that, when people have that much money, they really think that their judgment can get really skewed. And they're like, I want this, and they don't have enough respect for nature. And, like,
stupid.
Yeah. And so not only is that a problem, people leave their fucking garbage up there. And so I was reading about, so there was a project to try and clear Mount Everest, and a Nepalese government expedition has removed 11 tons of garbage and 4 dead bodies. Like, there's bodies all over the place there because, like, people die and it's just too much work to bring them down. Like, people stepping over bodies to climb. So, you know, I just don't. I've read the descriptions. I mean, I do not understand, like, wanting to be that cold and miserable. That's just, but especially, like, okay, like, climb a mountain that's smaller. I mean, you know, it's just
always the thrill of doing something that most people can't do. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, there's not even. I think, you know, because Everest is like this big thing. It's like people build it up in their mind as a big symbol. So, and there's only like a couple weeks out of the year when it can be climbed. So that's what you have, all these people that are trying to climb it at a certain time, and it's just crazy. All these people are like standing in line, and you have to just stand there and wait, and you're just damaging your brain because the oxygen is really thin there, and then that makes people's judgment really bad. That's part of the problems. You need to, you're losing you can't, so it makes it even harder for people to go back. So, but and then they're like fucking assholes that like just go up there and like pay all their money and leave their garbage. So ridiculous. And it's difficult because these countries make a lot of money off of the tourism, and there's a lot of cases again of some mountain people that have a lot of money and like are really used to just bossing other people around and having everything go their way. So fuck that. Okay. So this is kind of weird. Going back to the state of Israel and DNA testing. And so, okay, we've talked about this before, though. There's this thing called the right of return, where any Jewish person can go to Israel whenever they want and become a citizen. And so that's kind of the definition of nationalism. Israel's another country that like throws out migrants. In Israel's a weird country so far as like, they say they're secular, but they still, an Israeli newspaper reported that the chief rabbi had been requesting DNA tests to confirm that somebody was Jewish before issuing marriage licenses.
Wow.
Isn't that creepy? It's as if the rabbis have become technocrats. They're using genetics to give validity to their discriminatory practices. So it's just weird. Like, how do you even... it's just really weird and creepy. They're blaming it on the fact that, okay, well, people come from... because it targets immigrants. It targets people that that might not have birth certificates or traditional forms of identification. And I don't even know, like, how would they even, and it gives a lot of leeway for the rabbis to discriminate. Like, okay, are you going to ask for some people's DNA tests and not ask for other people's DNA tests? And like, okay, well, what if this person... Yeah, there's also this weird thing about, like, my stepmother converted to marry my dad, and she didn't give a shit, and she did, I don't know, and she did it, like, she had to get converted by an Orthodox rabbi, and the reason was so that any kids they had, and they had 3 kids, would be considered Jewish enough for them to marry a Jewish person, if that's what they decided to do. And my brother's wife converted to marry him for the same reasons, basically, so that, and my brother is actually, he's really into being Jewish, and my niece who was listening last time is gonna go to Israel, and she's spent time there, and so she's really into all that. But so the point is, like, say if she, please don't do this, Madeline. Say if she wants to like marry, if she wants to become an Israeli citizen, she could, and she wouldn't have any problem doing that. And, if she wants to marry an Israeli guy, please don't do that, Madeline. She could, and nobody would give her any problems about it. But it's like the rabbis can be signaling or singling out people to ask for DNA tests, and it's just creepy. I mean, like, how are you supposed to know? I mean, our DNA shouldn't determine our lives. We should be able to go where we want, and So yeah, so that's just weird, and I don't know. So, and it's just the mentality. Like, I was reading another an article about this town in Minnesota, which is like starting anti-Muslim organizations, and say these people aren't like us. And it's like who? I mean, the country is just a piece of land. It doesn't make any difference. Oh, okay. Remember how we were talking about reparations?
Mm-hmm.
It's being debated in Congress.
So, and they still didn't say what is being debated, so to speak.
Setting up a commission. That's the debate.
So I wonder how they would do that.
Well,
I still kind of wonder how that...
Nobody knows. The discussion is just about setting up a commission. That's it. Mm-hmm. And so... and it's a way, and speaking of Cory Booker, he's a big proponent of that. But yeah, that's all it is setting up a commission. And so Ta-Nehisi Coates, the young writer who was really influential in popularizing this, we've talked about him before, was testifying in Congress, and so was Danny Glover. And Mitch McConnell was like... that was 155 years ago. It's over. Like, Mm-hmm. And the point is that people have long-lasting effects. And it's like, what the fuck, guy? Like, Jim Crow, everything. I mean, but, yeah, I don't know. But all they need to do... I mean, it's ridiculous. They're not debating reparations. It's like they're debating. It's like, okay, all we're going to do is all they're talking about is like setting up a commission to talk about it, or like to try and figure this stuff out. And, I mean, what they would need to do is go back to genealogical records and like say, look at people. Okay, so like the way you could do it is go back and be like, okay, well, how much money could this person have been making if they were employed? Like, that's one way you could do it. And like
so how would that work? I mean, how would they do that? Like,
you would look at
somebody.
You would like look at what this. Okay, like say if you wanted to like go back to this plantation slave-holding families, you would look at what people at that time were paid.
So they would look back at what a slave was paid?
No, they would look back and see because slaves weren't paid, they would look back and see what somebody would have been paid at that time.
And so paying them, how much were they paying for how long?
Well, you would have to keep doing that. You would have to keep building that. And like say if you and yeah.
So let's just say you worked on a farm.
Yeah.
You were doing whatever you had to do on the farm.
Yeah.
Let's just say back then on a farm a normal person made, let's just say 10 cents an hour.
Yeah.
So they would give you nowadays 10 cents an hour?
Well, they'd have to adjust it for it for inflation.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So they would have to, because they did that all the time. I mean, it's not like, say, whenever you're looking at something, at anything historical, to be like, okay, well, the hotel was like $10 back then, and in today's dollars. Mm-hmm. So that's what they'd have to figure that out. basically. And so that would be one way of doing it. Like, for example, one of the things, my brother's real helpful with these sort of concepts. Like, one of the things, it's like because he represents people that die from asbestos poisoning, and so, like, like some of his settlements will be, he'll look at, like, okay, how much money could this person have made in the course of their lifetime if they hadn't died when they were 35, and that's the financial amount they'll get awarded.
And then also, how would that work? For how high up in the generation do they go? That's another question. You see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, and so all that's being discussed in Congress is
like, will they
how
cut
to
it
figure that
off?
out.
Like, if you were born, I don't know, let's say you were born 1990 on up, you can't get it. Would they do something like that, or like, how would they work that?
Well, that's one of the things they'd have to try and figure that out. Well, it goes back to the issue of the difference between equity and equality. Like, say, if you have, like, okay, two kids applying for college, and one is from a wealthy family, and so one is from a family that isn't wealthy. So you need, like, say you would look at the differences in their lives. That's the Morehouse. Okay, did we talk about the guy paying off the Morehouse students' debt? It's a great example. Okay, because
I read that.
Yeah,
I read that.
yeah. A guy is paying off the debt of the Morehouse graduating class of 2019. He's paying off everybody's debt, and so that means that those students will be on an equitable level with students who are graduating without student loan debt, and students who don't have. If you're graduating without student loan debt, that's because your family had more money and paid for you to go to school. So that means you have the freedom to, like, be an artist or whatever. So that means that those students will be able to pursue different opportunities and different interests and not need immediately start paying it back. And one of the students said that, and this was a great example, he said that it would make a difference to his children, because a lot of people are still paying off their own. I mean, a lot of people are paying off student loans for 20 years. So, like, say if so say if, like, he started a so he would be paying off his own if he was still paying off his student loans. This will mean that when he starts a family, he's going to be able to save for his kids' education instead of still be paying off his own student loans. So that's just a perfect example of how that sort of stuff works.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, wow, that just I mean, coming from like a 21-year-old graduate, it was like, wow, that really brings it home. I mean, and it just makes so much difference for what kind of career somebody could have. Like, say, even if they're like, okay, are they going to be a public interest lawyer or go into corporate law, or like, say, if they're going to go to medical school, like, okay, are they going to be able to go? Are they going to be able to work in public health, or, you know? And it's like they should be able to, you know. I mean, and if those graduates want to go into the private sector and make a bunch of money, they should be able to do, you know, they should be able to do that. And, you know, but if they don't, and, you know, so it just means that you have this whole group of people that will be able to, you know, be able to put their own money to contribute to their own causes and to contribute to others. So, I mean, it was pretty fascinating to think about. I mean, all that stuff just makes so much difference.
Right.
So, yeah, but I mean, so that's, you know, it's a perfect example of the difference between equity and equality.
True.
Yeah, and it's, oh God, I feel really bad. There's a young guy that's posting on Twitter about, you know, who would have graduated in that class, but he'd left Morehouse because of his student loan debt, and so I feel really bad for him. I was like, yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah, that would suck though. Come on, man. Just think if you know, like, I mean, it's just, you know, like, okay, here he was. He's like, okay, you could have, like, yeah, I mean, you know, you could have been starting off, you could have, like, graduated from a prestigious school, debt, and not be paying off his debt. So I was really hoping that millionaire would help him too. I don't know. He can't help everyone, but
that's still good who he helped, you know.
Exactly. It's going to make a huge difference, and, you know, just hopefully set examples. Hopefully other people will do the same thing. I mean, I actually think, you know, I think it's awesome. I mean, I think that people might want to do, I think in some situations it would be good to, you know, it would be beneficial to do like a percent. And I mean, another way you could do it is just do a percent, like pay off half of the loans or something.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, it's pretty crazy when I talk to people that, I mean, I have friends that are still paying off huge student loans, and I'm just like, what? People told you this? I mean, it's just real. It seems like some college administrators and counselors are just really, really irresponsible and don't explain to students, like, what they're taking on.
I think that whole thing is a mess up anyway, the way that they do that to people going to school. Those debt loans, the way that they do it.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, some kids never even really worked, so to speak, like,
yeah.
You know, so, you know, they've been straight school all their life, and so then they have to pay back that money.
Yeah.
And some kids really think that when they get out, you're just going to get this, you know, I'm going to get this job where I'm making over 100 figures, you know, over 100,000 every year, and to be honest, most of the time.
And that's ridiculous. I mean, that is where advisors need to step in and try. And it's another case of a huge.
But they're for the school too, so they can't really just. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a hard situation to explain to a kid.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Explain to the kids.
You know,
like,
are you sure you want to stay here? Because you know you're gonna have to pay back about $60,000.
I would just call that being a responsible person. Explaining something about about like how much you make in different fields.
But you have to be honest. If you were really honest, you'd be like, you might not be working in that field. You might, and if you do, There's no guarantee you'll make that much.
Well, that's exactly what advisors should be talking for. I had no advice. I had no advice whatsoever when I was in college,
that's a
and
trap
it sucked.
to me. That's what I'm saying. That's where
but fortunately, I went to a cheap college. But no, I had like nobody gave a shit. Nobody talked to me about. And yeah, I
think it's a trap. Yeah. I still just think it's a trap. I think you can tell people that, well, you can get a job and you'll be making 100 figures, but I hate to be honest with people, but the chances of you, even if you get a job like that, you might not make that much.
And that's what they need. That's what they need to explain. But I also think it's pretty pathetic now too. It's like, okay, you can get a lot of that information on the internet, but that's where that's where you need to try and parents need to try and figure that out, and that's where again all of us need to try and, that's why I think it's important. I had none of this shit. That's why it's important to try and have mentors and in life and try and have people in communities talk with young people and try and tell them this stuff.
Because like with me, I'm glad I started to work when I was 15. I was able to work when I was pretty much in high school, so I kind of already started working.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got an idea of what was realistic and what wasn't super realistic, You could be making $100,000, but, not everybody can make that much money. It's not going to happen.
Did anybody in your school did you have any advice or anything in your school?
The advice that everybody gets you is they tell you can do it, which is nothing wrong with that, but in reality, they should tell you could do it, but you might might not happen. But people don't want to tell you that.
Well, yeah, because because there was definitely sort of, nobody gave me any advice or anything, but you did hear something like, oh, you can do what you want. Like, no, you can't. You can't.
That's the weird part of it, because even if you do go to school and you pass everything to do what you want to do, if the field you're trying to get in is already saturated with a lot of people, you probably won't be able to get into that field until everybody retires. And even still then, you never know. You might not be as qualified as they want you to be there. It's just, to me, that's hard.
And that's another issue where equity and all of that comes up, because a lot of people get jobs through internships, and internships are like a lot of them aren't paid, so it's going to be students that don't need to work that get them, and internships are through connections. So if you have family that's in a lucrative area, in a lucrative field, they're going to know people that can give you internships. And so it's just huge how much all that stuff makes a difference. Think about like the kids who grew up, let's say, wanting to be football players, basketball players, baseball players. That's like a 1 in a million thing. Oh, I know. That drives me crazy.
And so if you were a kid and you grew up and that's all you wanted to do, and you get to college, let's just say you were good in college and all the way up at the time, you get to the pros, you're not as good.
Well, that's just why, I remember one of my, I remember, some of my neighbors, the kids played sports, and, this kid's grandmother was saying that, oh yeah, we ran into this teacher and he said he could do football, and I just said, well, did he tell him anything else? He's got to get an education too.
Yeah, so like I said, both ways to me are two-sided. If you're going to tell somebody they can do it, you also got to tell them, just in case, you don't get exactly what you want. You might get in your field, but maybe you might have to work in the office. You might not be able to be the manager, or, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah.
You might not be the 100,000 or the 100,000 a year person. You might be the 60,000 a year person.
Yeah.
Or,
And so just the hopes are,
And so that's what I think is the part that if you haven't worked, or if you're a kid, you probably don't understand that part. So when you get out in the world thinking, okay, I did all this, I went to college, I did all my years, but I can't find a job. That's what a lot of things that are happening with kids now.
Well, it's still
that I've
pretty.
been hearing.
I mean, I think it's pretty pathetic but yeah, if they can't like figure some of that shit out. But yeah, well, that's why it's important to, again, I mean, have organizations like Jack and Jill, or there's another, or just anything to try and bring young people and to expose young people to more worldly knowledge, and get more and an opportunity to find out more about different things. Yes. Congratulations to my baby Mario, who graduated from high school. But yeah, I wonder what he's gonna do. Another one of my babies.
Nice.
Yeah. So, okay, everybody. Thank you so much to Paul. Give my love to Joe for listening, and thank you very much to James for listening. Give my love to Annie. We will be back on the first Tuesday of July.
Yes.
And next week you can hopefully check out Roselle at the Nika Lounge, but we will keep everybody posted.
We will keep everybody posted on that.
Yeah.
And we might have a special duck soup. So
yes, that would be very cool.
Goes.
Okay, good night.